Hey everyone, welcome to the Mitch Sanker Show, where we talk business, entrepreneurship, and big ideas. Today's guest has been in the fitness industry for over 10 years, serving in various roles such as personal training and holistic lifestyle coaching. He has started 2 companies where he's dedicated to his purpose of helping individuals reconnect with their spirit through movement, mindful nutrition, and spiritual practices. Please welcome my friend, Bharat Oza. Let's start the show. You find you make good eye contact with people when you shake their hands? You do? Like
I consciously try to, yes.
You try to, yeah. Do you notice how like some people don't?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Personally, from my experience, because I tend to be that way, a lot of times it's insecurities or self-worth challenges.
Yeah.
Because I used to be that way a lot more. Like
where you didn't look in their eyes.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe it'll be so brief and it'll be like, oh wait. Right. And I realized, so over the last 2 years, I've worked with a mindset coach to work on my self-worth. And it's completely transformed my life. And having done even some tantric practices where one of the exercises is eye gazing.
Yes.
So you're sitting with this complete stranger, literally staring in the eyes for fucking 5 minutes.
Yeah. Is it weird?
Initially it is.
Yeah. Especially with a stranger.
Yeah. And it could be
where it's like weird, where like when you're really focusing on someone's eyes, like everything else is kind of blurred. It's not like you're like, oh, what's going on with their earlobe, or they got a double chin, or like you can't see, you're not seeing any of this stuff.
You know what?
Right?
It's funny because it's more self-judgment. When you're looking in the person's eyes, you're like, oh, they can see me. Now what are they thinking? What are they wondering? It's funny because we judge ourselves so much, and then that's how we catch ourselves judging others.
Right.
You know, but like having done tantric practices, having done, work on my self-worth, all these different things, now I consciously stare into the person's eyes. And I find it can be more awkward, especially because how we're programmed, right? Looking into a man's eyes that way. So for five minutes, I'm sitting there looking into a man's eyes. There is all this old programming that comes up going, this is awkward.
Right.
Well, if it's a woman, it's better. But is there something sexual about this?
Yeah.
Initially, right? But I've done it enough where now it's just so natural.
Yeah. And do you think that there's any sort of like predatorial type of things, like, like with animals, right? Like you look into some dogs or like,
good point.
other animals, and they say like, whatever you do, just don't look at the person's eyes, right? Because it's more of like a threat.
Yeah. And it could happen.
That's kind of like hardwired into us?
I'm sure part of that is that because you could have someone who's so connected with, I have to be the alpha male.
Yes.
And they're coming from this place of ego where they're like, I'm going to outstare you.
Right.
I am the guy.
Well, because I noticed that, right? I have no problem. I don't have any problem, really looking people in their eyes when you shake their hands, and it's like women, no problem. But I also find I get it more from guys where like, they'll shake their hand, but they're like looking off. They're like, how you doing? Kind of thing. And it's like, and then what you're feeling, you're like, what's going on, right? You can't help but feel like, is this person like authentic? Are they?
I'll tell you a fucking hilarious story. So, one of my partners who I was dating years ago, we went on the first date, and again, this is where my self-worth issues were massive. But they say everyone who comes into your life is showing you a mirror or exposing things that you need to work on, right?
Right.
I remember the first date. I thought she was the most gorgeous woman on the planet. I would not look at her. I would not make eye contact. Like we'd sit and we'd be talking. The conversation was amazing. I'd look at her briefly and then look away somewhere.
Right.
And then go back to my food.
Right.
And even she noticed. She was like, how come you don't look at me? I was like, oh, no, I'm looking at you. What do you mean? I'm sitting here. I'm eating, whatever, made excuses.
Yeah.
A couple of months after we were dating, I was like, yeah, you know what? I was so fucking nervous. I was like, I just thought like, why are you even here with me?
Okay.
Like, what are you doing here with me?
Right.
And it's funny because now when I look back at it, I'm like, wow. Like, there was a time when I wasn't even aware of that, but she brought that out for me to go, what are you doing? So.
That's kind of cool that you brought that up. And I've heard that from other people too, like how you perceive other people or how you look at them or treat them. It's really that mirror. Can you go on in like more details like that?
Yeah.
Is there more, is there other examples that you've seen that in your lives or other people that you've helped?
I think a lot of times, again, when I've sat in tantric circles, so those are circles where you are doing eye gazing, right? So pretty much they play music in the background, and there's a circle outside and there's a circle inside.
Okay.
So people who are sitting inside are just staying there. The people who are outside, after the song ends, they move to the next person. So pretty much for 3 hours, you're staring into complete strangers' eyes, like maybe 10 people, and you're sitting there. And it's funny because I did this sometime in December, I believe, and it was awesome connecting with some souls. And then you could see there was some resistance with some of them.
Right.
Then you could see certain men mostly not being able to keep eye contact because for them, not just from a man-to-man perspective, but also from a, I'm still this little kid who feels I'm not worth being here. And so they look down or they look there. But then the beautiful thing is, now sometimes the staring, depending on the length of the music, could be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. The longer we stayed and you just stare, then I had some men literally in tears. And you could feel this massive wall just break down. So it's been amazing seeing that, observing it in myself, and then of course with people doing that.
Is that like a practice that people can do,
Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
like with their partners, or like is that something
100%.
they do with their kids, or like
Anybody.
Yeah.
I think it's so important because when they say the eyes are the way into the soul,
Yes.
I truly believe that. Like when you start looking into someone's eyes and you're literally just looking and not being attached to being the looker,
Right.
and you're out of your mind, it's just like beautiful. It's beautiful. It's one of those things that you can't really put into words. You know, when you sit there, and I encourage anyone, like sit with your partner, sit with your kids, sit with a friend. You know, like there's nothing awkward, and the awkwardness that comes up, observe it. Why is that? Why are you awkward? What is so awkward about staring into someone's eyes? You know, and we realize how much programming there is.
Right.
You know, so it's just incredible. I encourage anyone to do that.
And where did you do this circle thing? Where was that?
This was somewhere in Toronto. It was
Okay.
literally something I found on Facebook. Someone had
Yeah.
posted like, "Hey, I'm running this thing."
Right.
And I was like, "Yep, I'm going for this." So it was beautiful. So it was a breathwork class. So they take you through breathwork first.
Yeah.
Because that opens up all your energy channels. And
Yeah.
then the end was, all right, for the next pretty much, I think 2 hours maybe, or an hour and a half, we were like doing the circle.
Cool.
But I had also done Tantra Level 1 with Lucy Becker
Okay.
in Toronto. Phenomenal teacher. I believe she's one of the best teachers in Canada. So eye gazing was also one of those things that I had learned from her before I even went into the circle. So going into the circle was easier for me because I had done it a couple of years ago at the Tantra Level 1 course. It was one of the exercises we had to do. So, but it was extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so cool. I'm
Yeah.
I'm super interested in that.
Yeah.
You're into all this holistic stuff.
Yeah.
Like, these practices and all this stuff. Like, how did you get into this? Where did it all start with you?
Oh man,
When?
I think
Like,
it was.
When did it start, and why did you get into it?
You know what? It's funny because I think I was always into it. Even as a kid, I was an introvert, always in my head. I was like very aware of this. What is this voice in my head? You know, how is it that I know certain things? But as a kid, and then programming, school, parents, TV, I believe all these things, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there are these things that make you not connect with your intuition and not connect with your spirit. Like now I'm very comfortable talking about spirit, soul, whatever. But there is, most of us think that's woo-woo.
Right.
And I know so many people who are, I think we all are spiritual, right? We all are. Whether we practice certain things or not, there is a level of spiritualism we all have. But maybe people who are more inclined to delving deeper into it and understanding what it means to be an energetic being or a spiritual being. I think there's this stigma around, oh, what if I talk like that, people will think I'm woo-woo. People won't take me seriously. But that's okay. I've overcome that. I don't even care. This is who I am. And it's one of my practices to speak the truth. And part of that being truth of who I am. And so I think I always was like that. I was always inclined to that. Religion was heavily pushed on me, which at the time as a kid, I was like, oh, these stories are really cool. But then I also started not liking the ritual religion, the structured, organized religion. I was like, no. And so I pushed it. So I've gone through spectrums of enjoying religious stories, going to church and singing, going to temples, to becoming an atheist, to even exploring Satanism. And when I say Satanism, not, I was cutting sheep somewhere on the street and doing some weird, crappy ceremonies. It was literally just exploring what is Satanism about. And really it was self-empowerment. That was what I realized it was about. But so I've gone through all those spectrums to finally, I think down the road, always constantly wondering, why am I like this? Or why am I here? I used to hear things about purpose, but I never understood, what is that? Like, I was lost for years. I had no purpose, no idea what I'm doing with my life. But I think all of that, and then going through a lot of emotional challenges, always led me to seek answers. And I think that's been something that's beautiful. And this happens to all of us. A lot of us are just not conscious of it. You know, we're asking, Tony Robbins says this, the quality of the life depends on the quality of the questions you ask.
Right.
So I think I've thankfully always asked the right questions. You know, what is this? Why is this? What am I learning from this? And I see now when I look at my life, things that kept happening till I learned the lesson.
Give me an example of that.
So let's say, for example, let's take relationships. So I would always get into relationships where I had to be the hero. Because my programming about romantic relationships was from a lot of Bollywood movies where the hero saves the actress, then they fall in love. Okay, so this must be love. So I automatically, there's this unconscious programming in my brain, I have to save people, right? Which helped in a way because it led me to becoming, you know, a trainer, nutritionist, helping people. Although back then it was about saving them. Now it's just my purpose and I'm not attached to the consequence. A little different, but let's go back to relationships. I'd always get into relationships where I had to save them. So I'd find partners who needed saving. Or I shouldn't say needed saving, but had certain things where I could go, all right, I will save you.
Right.
You know, and, but yeah, that didn't work out really well because they all ended once the saving was done. You know, and then I'm still trying to be the savior and they're like, can I just have a lover and a partner versus I don't need a hero now anymore. You know, and till I didn't learn that, I kept attracting relationships like that. You know, till finally I broke that cycle and then attracted different relationships, which again, always showed me something. So I'm tremendously grateful for all those partners because they all led me to the next level of my evolution. So they were perfect partners. So when people say, you know, those were not the right people for you, I have to disagree. Those were the right people for you for your level of consciousness at that time.
Right.
You know, so now I can look back and say, whoa, what was I doing with her? But you know what? In that time and space and for my level of consciousness back then, she was perfect. She was the person I needed to mirror and say, this is where you are. These are your shadows. If you want to work on it, great. If not, that's fine too.
Right.
Because either way, the universe loves you. And that's what I've learned about love is always a perpetual yes. That's unconditional love. It's never, if you're like this, then there's love. If not, there isn't. You know, so I think that's been one of the experiences where till I learned the lesson, those experiences kept happening.
And why did you say that you were attracting those relationships? I think most people would say like they just got into those relationships or they found those relationships. So why are you saying you attracted them?
Because I believe very strongly that I create my reality through my emotions, through my actions. I believe through actions is how we speak to God, universe, whatever anyone believes. And the way you feel is the frequency you send out there. So if I have the frequency of fear, I will attract people in my life, not just romantic relationships, people in my life that mimic that. And a lot of times they'll magnify that. So they might be 10 times more fearful than I am. That's what I've found in my experience. So that's why I say that, because it's always this literally, and it sounds cliche, but it's so true, where whatever you give out is exactly what's coming back to you. You know, so when I say that, yeah, I attracted them, I manifested them, I totally did. And that's not an egoistic statement. It's just reality of how we create it. You know, like everything, for people who are familiar with, he's one of my gurus and guides, Baba Ramdas, who just recently passed away. There was a talk he had given where he said, we all are living in our own universe, you know, and he says, God comes to the hungry in the form of food. So what he says, just this, I'm paraphrasing him, but let's say I was walking through a new town and my car's broken down. I'm going to look, everywhere I look, I'm probably going to find a mechanic or car parts or something. Let's say you're hungry and you walk into the same town, same people, everything's the same. You look around, because you're hungry, you're going to find restaurants, food. You're not going to see a mechanic.
Right.
So that's how we're projecting and creating reality. So whatever my vibration is, whatever my intentions are, whatever my biggest focus is, whatever's most on my mind is exactly what I'm going to find in this universe.
Right. What, do you have any advice for someone saying like, oh, they want to like, you know, break their cycle, or like all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want to be successful. I want to be happier. Like how to, what's that first step that you would, you know, give them if there is any advice that you can offer them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because I've gone through that and I still do in different, because we're always evolving and we always want to get better, you know? I think the first step is define happiness. You know, for years, and I always say this, we always should on ourselves, you know? The society, school, corporate structure, parents, all of them pretty much design this life for us and say, this is how things should be. You have to go to school. You have to get married. You have to get kids. You do blah, 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 blah. Have to save, have to have this. And they box us, right? So I always say, start willing your life, not shoulding your life. So start defining what happiness truly means to you. You know, most people automatically will say, yeah, if I had $1 million, there's this magical $1 million figure that's supposed to make everyone happy. Everyone should be millionaires or be millionaires. But, you know, everyone should have a home, right? But really take some time. And I always tell people to go away from their regular surroundings. So if you're always around certain people, and not that those people are bad, but if you're in a certain environment, I would say detach yourself from that environment and go take some time for yourself. It could be, I don't know, if you're in Whitby, go drive downtown. Sit in a cafe if that's your thing, or go sit in a park. Completely different environment where the regular stimulus or distractions are not there, right? And then sit and really define what would make you happy, right? Another way of maybe putting this is write down what your ideal life would look like.
Right.
Don't think about how. This is something I learned from my mindset coach, Brenda Johnston. I used to be someone who used to be so caught up in how, I stopped dreaming. You know, like as kids, we dreamt of all these things. You know, we used to draw fucking unicorns and purple trees and blue sunlight, and like, we stopped dreaming. You know, and I always say this because I'm studying shamanism. When you go to, in a lot of these shamanic societies, when you go to a shaman with any disease or any depression or whatever, some of the first questions they ask you is, when did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop storytelling? When did you stop not liking being by yourself? You know, when did you stop dreaming? So I found that because of these structures, I had stopped dreaming, right? I got so caught up in the how will that happen, I stopped thinking about what is happiness for me. Is it $1 million? Is it, you know, have a house? It's not. And once I realized that this is what happiness means for me, it just blew my mind. And then I got direction, right? Because instead of having some people having programmed me to say, if you don't have this, you're not successful. Versus my own definition of success and then chasing that.
Right.
Regardless of what anyone thinks.
Right.
Right. And it
makes sense. I mean, like you'd have to have that definition and clarity to know exactly where the heck you are going.
Yeah.
Like how do you get the roadmap if you don't even know what you're defining the destination as?
Yeah. And that's the thing I find when books or coaches or whatever talk about, let me help you find your purpose. That's great. I'm sure there are effective ways and they work, but I still think people need to first start with defining what happiness means for them. Happiness for you could be, I travel 6 months a year. So if you're traveling 6 months a year, do you want a, I don't know, $500,000 house? Maybe you do because maybe you rent it out and then that pays for your lifestyle.
Right.
But you have to decide that. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the first step I would suggest is first define what happiness means for you. And then second, be aware, start becoming aware. How far away from that story are you? Because sometimes people have gone, yeah, I'd love to just be a yoga teacher and travel the world and teach people yoga and spread this message of oneness and love or whatever it is. Great. Now let's step back and look at your life and see, where are you right now?
Right.
Well, I'm in a corporate job, I work, and nothing wrong with corporate jobs. So anyone bitching about corporate jobs, stop doing that. And I say that because people tend to do that a lot. But yeah, if you're in I'm in this job, this is where my income comes from, and I have a family that I can just disconnect from this job because that ends my source of income or anything. Great, step back and look at that and go look at, okay, is there maybe a couple of things that I can remove from my life that really don't align with my definition of happiness, right? Maybe you start with that, or maybe you start doing one or two things that align with that. Maybe you just start doing a yoga class. Instead of worrying about when will I travel the world and teach yoga, how about you just start doing yoga? How about you learn yoga? That might be the first step. So I think the first step is define the happiness. Second step, do a scan of your current life and lifestyle and see, okay, can I do anything today that will take me closer to that vision, right? And I think that would be an awesome start. And from there, people will find their path. And that's where I think people need to start trusting their intuition, trusting their spirit. And that's what one of my purposes in life is, to help people remember, reconnect, and revere the spirit that's within them. Because it's taken me years of going through challenges, or using plant medicine, or living in isolation, or going through running businesses, meeting people, working with people, to go, wow, okay, so this is how I trust my own intuition. And that's right now is my number one guiding star. Yes, I have coaches, but at the end of the day, my intuition leads me first.
Cool. Do you, why do you think people have such a hard time trusting their intuition? Or is it just that we got so many distractions that people are kind of lost or not? I find I've got a pretty good sense of my intuition and all that, right? But I find
it's not common.
It's not common. I'm having a great conversation. I'm connecting with you, and we've had other conversations in the past where you can tell.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
You could tell when you're around people that know themselves and have that same intuition, and can have a higher level of consciousness and better conversations,
100%.
right? But do you think that are people why are people so lost that they don't have that intuition? Is it that we're just around too much distractions?
I think that's definitely one part of it.
Yeah.
I think the first part of it is programming.
Yeah.
When you go to school, you're never taught to listen to that voice, right? It's funny because
so are we shutting that voice down from an early
100%,
age? Yeah,
100%, right? It's right from the time since we're kids, right? If a kid says, "Look, I drew a purple sun. Sun's yellow." Okay, and the kid says, "Great," because for the kid, whoever said that, the adult, the parents or the teacher, is God. Okay. We're shutting down that intuition, the vision, the dreaming is gone right from that early age, right? You go into school and you tell people, I have this voice in my head. You're crazy.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? It's funny because my friend, he went for this, to get his chiropractor's license. He's claircognizant, clairsentient, he hears spirits, sees spirits, and stuff like that, and senses energy, sees halo, all these beautiful abilities that he has, and that we all have. We all have to just connect with it and practice it. But he went into this chiropractic school where I think he had to give a psychological exam for whatever reason. And one of the things they asked him is, do you hear voices? And everyone always says no, because that's the definition of sanity, right? Everyone wants to get that chiropractor's license or whatever, so they say that. He was the only person apparently who says all the time.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And they all laughed because they're you're the first person who's been honest. But it's true, we right from the start, we say that's crazy. That's hokey pokey. That's woo woo.
Right.
That's magic, and magic is not real. Magic's happening every fucking day around you.
Yeah.
You just have to recognize it. So it's I think that's where it starts. Right from birth, it's this conditioning where we're shut down and we're taught to be so left brain. Everything has to make sense. You have to see it. You have to be able to touch it. or it's not real. And first of all, we're taught to be very mental. We're never taught to be here.
Right.
And then even here, it's all left brain stuff. Like even look at the education system now, right? Unless you go to certain schools, they don't focus on, let's teach you music. Let's sing, let's dance, let's draw. Guys, what's the wildest dream you can come up with? No, it's, did you do your math?
Mm-hmm.
And those things are also important, but I think it's so critical to have that left and right balance, right? Like actually in a lot of countries, I can't remember the exact country now, there are schools that focus, I think till age 4 or age 7, it's all right brain stuff. It's drawing, singing, and teaching through that. But till that age, they don't even talk about like, all right, today let's talk about science and math.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. I think that's where it starts. But after that, you're right, 100%. We're so distracted. Social media, entertainment, TV, so much that takes us away from this voice, right? When's the last time you see anything that says, let's go walk in nature? Mm-hmm. Sadly, we don't see ads for that. Mm-hmm. Are you depressed? Here, take this. We don't see, are you depressed? When's the last time you fucking walked bare feet, connected with these trees and this energy? Mm-hmm. Personally, just from having gone through so much in the last 2 years, like with plant medicine, connecting with spirit, studying shamanism, I really feel that's the number one reason why we have these problems in society, is that we're so disconnected from nature.
Yeah.
And when I say disconnected from nature, not just trees, plants, river, whatever, but we are nature.
Sure.
It's the same molecules.
Yeah.
So disconnecting from nature is disconnecting us from us. And I think I know that is the root cause of all these health issues and mental health issues that we all have. I think that needs to be, besides obviously mindful nutrition and, spiritual practices, I think that's number one. It would be beautiful if, I don't know, after 6 p.m., cities turn lights off. So you can fucking look at the stars.
Don't they do that in some places?
In some places.
I mean, obviously there's places in the world that have no.
Right, but no, there are.
But...
There are places where they shut lights down so you can look at the motherfucking Milky Way and go, wow.
Yeah.
Like when I was trekking to Everest Base Camp, when I was in Peru, when I was in Iceland, like standing under the massive, beautiful sky, being able to look at makes me emotional, but you look at the universe and you see the stars, man, you realize how trivial you are, how trivial your problems are, but also you realize how fucking powerful you are. Mm-hmm. You realize that you are this being that is a manifestation of that. And so it's this weird paradox where it's like this duality where you're like, I am nothing, but I'm also everything.
Right.
And that comes from just standing under the stars. We don't see that here.
Yeah.
So just, I think
we're not
that
reminded
level
of that every day.
Yeah.
It's something
all
that's...
the time, man.
Yeah.
All the time. Like I have been drawn to mountains and stuff a lot. And sometimes I had this picture in my house. A very close friend of mine, when I was trekking to Everest Base Camp, took this picture of me against these mountains, and I'm sitting there and have my hands folded. When I sit down and I look at that picture, I'm like, I was there. I was in the Himalayas.
What was that like?
It was tough.
Yeah.
Because this is funny. Again, I literally booked that trip listening to my intuition. I shouldn't say that now, it's different now, but back then I didn't even like walking for 30 minutes. Literally. So I booked the trip, I think 4 or 6 months before the actual trip. Mm-hmm. Booked it great. Yeah, trekking to Everest Base Camp, awesome. No mind involved. It was pure heart that I'm doing this. And I let it be and whatever. I got these emails, great guys, you'll need all these things. I was like, yeah, I got 6 months. And I'm working out, but I'm not necessarily training for this, right? I'm like, yeah, okay. I got to trek 13 days, whatever. Literally, I kid you not, a week and a half before the trip, I open up their email and go, let's look at the itinerary. What's happening? And I start looking, okay, 3 hours trekking the first day, okay. Next day is 4 hours. After that, it's like 6 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours. I was like, wow, why am I doing this trip?
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because when I got there, and I think it was like day 3, and we had trekked only 3 or 4 hours. But again, you're trekking through mountains, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's there's no proper roads. There's a path. Mm-hmm. and you have your backpack, which thank God I just carry a backpack. The Sherpas were carrying like 100 pounds in them. They were fast. But we get to this one point and I was exhausted. And we were sitting at this dinner table with the group and I was telling my friend, dude, I'm done. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't even like walking for 30 minutes. The whole table got silent. They turned around. They're like, you're here to trek, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you don't like walking? I was like, yeah, I don't. But that being said, it was a beautiful experience. Like I have this thing for isolation. I love being in isolated places, being isolated. And that being said, it's not like in daily life I want to be in this bubble. I love connecting with people.
Right.
But I have moments where I like the isolation as well. And so although, yes, you're trekking with the group and there's other trekkers and all that stuff, you're still within your being. And you're just trekking. There's nothing else to do. You just walk. And you're in nature. You see these mountains. You see these rivers and the air is incredible. Like just at night you see the stars and the Milky Way. Beautiful experience. Hard, because I remember I even did an Instagram story at one point because there was a point where we trekked for about 6 hours to get to this monastery, Buddhist monastery, which was like, I don't know, 200, 300 years old, which was incredible. And then that's where this hostel was where we were going to stay overnight. But the last 3 hours of the trek was literally uphill. And I remember walking like this. And at one point I was like, why am I here? What am I doing? I remember filming this Instagram story saying, kids, don't do this. Stay at home, watch Netflix. And as much as I was joking, I was crying inside. I was like, what the hell? But all of that was necessary on my path of spiritual development, on developing a mental muscle, a spiritual muscle, where I remember, it's funny because I remembered my dad. So when we were kids, every other year we'd go to India and my parents would take us to all these pilgrim centers. And I remember very distinctly being the little kid, sick as hell, like can't even breathe properly. My dad says, yeah, we got to wake up at 4 a.m. next day because we got to climb 3,000 steps up this mountain to get to this Buddhist temple. And at that point as a kid, I was like, my dad doesn't love me. Who does this to their kid? But I thank them so much. Because if not for those experiences, I think the base camp trek would be very difficult. Also because of the conditions there. It's cold as hell.
How cold are we talking?
I'm horrible
When
with
you went,
numbers.
okay.
But you're in layers.
Right.
And the weird thing is, you're in all these layers with the winter jacket on top, and you're walking, you're sweating inside, right? So you think, all right, I'm hot, I stopped, let me take my jacket off. But you don't realize there's this cold wind and you start freezing. So you wear the jacket again. There was one point where we got to this place where, again, these are isolated little villages, right? Up like so freaking high. So a lot of these places, there's no heat. There's a common area where they burn yak dung. And there's heat, you sit around it, get some heat. But then when you go into your room, there's nothing. It's a bed. You spend the night and you leave. Sometimes there's not even a proper bathroom. Like there's a lineup. If you want to shower and you want hot water, you pay for it. Some places don't even have hot water. The toilet's a hole, which is common in a lot of Asian places. But all of those experiences that I had as a kid, thanks to my parents taking me to all these places, this felt like nothing.
Right.
It was almost like I had this gratitude and reverence for those things and going, there's a hole. There's running water. Yes, it's freezing cold, but there's water. I have the ability to be here. I have the privilege of being here. It just brings so much gratitude out of you. It's insane.
Yeah. And when you said, you were saying how you like being in isolation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they probably would say that they wouldn't like being in isolation. But do you feel like that you're in isolation, but you're also... Most people think that you're in isolation, you're disconnected from everything, but would you say that you're more like even more connected to nature and you don't feel like, most people say, oh, you're going to feel lonely if you're in isolation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you have a sense of just connecting on a higher level to
100%.
nature because of just, you're not on your phone, you're not distracted by other relationships and other things.
No doubt about that. And I think that's part of why I like isolation, because it allows me to really reconnect. And kind of like you said, right? Like, what are some of the reasons why we don't follow intuition? Because we're distracted. A lot of people don't like being by themselves. And that's part of the problem. A lot of people don't like their own company. Only in the last 2 years have I truly, 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 truly loved my company. You know, like I can, and I say it from my heart, not just mentally, because, well, I should be able to love my company. Of course I love myself.
Right.
But truly from my heart, I can say I love being by myself. Not that I don't like to connect with people, but I'm okay being by myself. I'm okay being in isolation, or even just being in my own apartment and being so after my last trip to Peru, I came back and I sold my TV. I don't have a TV anymore. I understand it's there to program me. It's a distraction. It takes me away from my spirit. It takes me away. And again, not saying I will never watch TV in my life. That's not true. But for now, I don't see the value in it. I'd rather come home, pick up my books. I have like 4 books that I want to complete in the next 6 months, and there's 2 that I have on the go. So I'd rather come read that. And again, not being nerdy, not being righteous either.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love reading this stuff. And it nurtures me far more than watching something on Netflix.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I think, isolation helps me connect with my intuition.
Yeah.
It helps me connect with my spirits, with my spirit guides. It helps me connect with nature. You know, when you're in this hut in isolation and you hear all these sounds around you, you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, that guy? And you don't have a sense of time. Like, there's no watch. I didn't have a watch or anything when I was living in isolation there. So you hear this particular sound of this bird and you're like, oh, I think it's about 11 a.m. So I think we're going to have lunch in like 2 hours. It's like that. And it starts developing senses that you thought you didn't even have. So I think those are some reasons why I like the isolation.
Can you put your finger on like one thing, or like if you were to like think about that trip to Everest Base Camp, like is there one takeaway that you brought out of it? You know, like some people that go on a trip and there's like, what's that one thing that I got from that experience, right? And it really stays with them, and then that helps shape them, you know, and help them develop into, you know, who they're becoming.
Yeah. I think for me, it was observing my mind's madness and practicing not reacting to it and realizing it's a thought, it'll pass. It's a feeling, it'll pass. I think that's one of the biggest things I learned, because I remember probably a day or two before, even the day off, trekking to base camp. Again, right? It's raining, it's snowing, you're exhausted, you're living on 2 meals a day maybe. You got all this gear, and I shouldn't even be complaining because the Sherpas were like 100 pounds on them, and they're like gone. And these are 18-year-olds.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, weigh half my weight.
I was gonna say, are these guys jacked? Like, are they?
No, they're like they're muscular, but that's because they're just super lean. Like they're doing these treks maybe twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, taking tourists up and down, right? Like 13 days, like. But I had so much noise in my head, like.
While you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just during the trek, I remember telling my close friend Harsh, who took the picture of me against the mountains. I was like, I regret being here. I remember at one point breaking down and going, I regret doing this. When I got to base camp, I was in tears. I was like, I made it here. And I can't even explain that feeling because it was insane. I am under the Himalayas. I am in the crown chakra of this planet. And it was an insane feeling. But I had to go through that. And then I had to go 4 days back down. So, but the going down.
How long did it take to get there?
I believe it was 6 days.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was 6 days up and 3 or 4 days down. Because you stop less when you're going down. Although going down had its own challenges. Your knees start hurting and all that stuff. Because none of the steps or the paths are leveled. So one step could be this way, one step's lower.
Yeah.
So it gets hard on the knees and stuff. But I think that was my biggest thing, is the way to free myself of my mind's madness is to really observe and practice not reacting. And I still struggle with that, you know, but I think that would be the biggest thing is, is observe, don't react.
And you've gone to Peru as well, right?
Twice, yes.
Twice. How would you? So I guess instead of comparing or contrasting those two, like what did you get out of the trip to Peru? What were you doing there? What did you get out of that?
Yeah, I think the trip to Peru was the start of this really massive spiritual transformation for me.
Actually, let me just cut you
Sure.
off. What trip happened first? The Peru?
So Peru first,
Yes.
Everest Base Camp, and then Peru again.
Okay, cool.
So the first Peru trip was really, I'd gone through a breakup, which was very powerful for me. Really impacted me. And like I said, things will keep repeating till you get the message. That breakup, first of all, that relationship and the breakup had to happen. Actually, I don't want to even call it breakup. Let's say a transition. I'm trying to reword these things. The relationship and the transition happened so that I learn what love is. And which is why it's inspired me to write the book and plant medicines and things like that. But that was necessary. And so I was going through a difficult time and I wanted to travel again because I had traveled to Iceland just before that. I was like, all right, I want to go see Machu Picchu. Incredible, powerful place. I said, great, I'll do that. And then again, not realizing it at the time, I was like, I'd heard about ayahuasca. I didn't know enough about it. I knew it gives you visions. That's all I knew. And I knew there was some purging associated with it. So you could have diarrhea or you could throw up or whatever, right? Thankfully, I don't like to research too much and put ideas in my head. I'd rather go experience it and see what it's about.
Yeah.
So at that time, because I still had some spiritual practices, I was like, I'm going to Peru. I can't like go there and not experience ayahuasca. So the group that was doing the Machu Picchu tour and a little bit around Peru also had this sister company that did these retreats in the Amazon jungle where you do ayahuasca ceremonies. So I was like, yeah, okay, done. I'm doing this. And I went there to get some healing. Obviously, see Machu Picchu and all that stuff, but that truly was probably one of the most, or maybe even the most, transformational experience in my life. It literally did like a 360. Spiritually, physically, mentally, everything. All the pain and anger I had was gone in the first ceremony. Now, am I saying this is typical of everybody? No. Maybe I was ready to let it go. Whatever the reason was, maybe I connected really well with the plant. Maybe that was my path. And that's what they say about these plant medicines is, especially ayahuasca, is you will get what you need, not necessarily what you want. Thankfully for me, what I wanted and what I needed were the same. And I needed to let go of the anger and the grief because it was actually affecting my health.
From the relationship.
From the transition from the relationship, yes.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? It wasn't the relationship that caused the pain. It was my old programming and ego attachments that caused the pain. The relationship was beautiful. It was the teacher. I'm beyond grateful for that relationship. I'm even beyond grateful for the transition from the relationship. So I realized that it was all my conditioning, my programming, my ego attachments that caused the pain. So I needed freedom from that because it was also affecting my health, affecting my liver, affecting my kidneys, and emotions get stored in organs, right? So those ceremonies with ayahuasca transformed my life, truly. And again, it makes me super emotional to think of the shamans that helped me there. There were these mother and daughter that were our shamans for the ceremonies. And I can never repay them for the healing that they facilitated for me through this plant medicine. And I still have recordings of, so the shamans sing Icaros. Icaros are these healing medicinal songs that they say that the plants give them, and they sing them. And I still have recordings of those songs. I sometimes listen to them, and it's so powerful. But that literally was the first thing that transformed my life, my consciousness, and put me on this path, which I didn't even realize. At the time, I was like, wow, that anger's gone. That grief is gone. That was only the first ceremony, and I did 3 others after that.
What did you do? So after that first ceremony, or do you feel it like leave you during it or after? Like what's the feeling right then? How do you know it's gone?
It's this knowing, you know what I mean? Like the heavy feeling of grief, the heavy feeling of this anger, you don't feel it anymore. Or it doesn't have that grasp on you anymore. There's this feeling of, I didn't realize there's a difference between happiness and joy till that moment. There was joy. I wasn't just happy. I literally felt light. I felt like, let me put it this way. I felt love towards myself and to my partner that transitioned. That for me was the knowing. Because before that, I was so caught up in the grief and anger, I could not love myself. I couldn't love her. When this moved, this whether it released through an energetic release or whether it manifested as my pee, poo, and my puke, doesn't matter. It left, and there was love. And it's that presence of love that gave me the knowing that it's gone. Because then it was gone. Like when I came back from Peru, I had nothing but love for her and love for myself. And that's really how I could love her. But that was the other lesson there, is I didn't love myself enough, so I needed her love. And that's where the pain came from. The pain didn't come from her. It came from my attachment of, you have to give me the love. Because I clearly don't have enough for myself. And that's what most relationships are, sadly, in a lot of our world, right? We're taught that that person has to love you because that's how you're going to get love. Subconsciously, and that's why there's so much pain and trauma and emotional songs behind it. And nothing wrong with expressing through music, but if you listen to music, you see how much there are these wrong definitions of love that propagate all this. Like, where did I learn love from? From these movies that told me this is how love is. Or if she doesn't love you back, then you have to get angry.
Yeah.
Right? Or you have to be depressed or whatever. And so you play all that out. We don't realize this, but that's where all the programming comes from. Whether it's music, you hear songs that, oh, without you, I'm nothing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you don't know any better. So I'm not saying you have to blame yourself or anything, or blame your parents, or blame the music or whatever. But in that age or whatever, when you're just ready to receive all these messages and you're receiving the new programming, you don't realize you don't know any better. Again, which school is teaching you love?
Yeah.
There's no topic ever, no teacher saying, guys, we're going to speak about love. What true love, capital L love is. But we all know what movie love is, what musical, dramatic love is, so, and that's why I'm writing the book, is to change that. Because I had those attachments which brought a lot of pain. Doesn't have to be that way, like, not to sound cliche again, but our being is love. Love is a natural state. It's not something you do, and there was a time when I knew that intellectually. Now I know it in my soul, and so I am writing about it, right? And I can speak in a different frequency about it versus before it was just intellectual, but there was no practice. My relationships didn't reflect that.
Right.
So
so those ceremonies, can you like walk us through?
Sure.
Like what actually happens, or
Sure.
how long they last?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm speaking about ayahuasca ceremonies. There's other plant medicines that you can do, but ayahuasca ceremonies, so usually the ceremony is held in a maloka. So maloka is this beautiful, massive hut, right? So it's a ceremonial hut where there's beds, usually like in a circle. And then you have a pillow, you have a puke bucket. And there's shamans. Usually if it's a large group, there might be 2 to 3 shamans. So the last time I went to Peru, we had 3 shamans. So the shaman comes in, they protect the place, so they grid the place, they make sure the energy of the place is protected and clean. And then they do some prayers, some rituals, and then you set your intentions. And that's something you probably would have done already before. And then, you just come up to the altar. They bless the ayahuasca, which is the medicine, and then you drink it. And the dose is dependent. Either sometimes the shaman could choose the dose for you. Sometimes you can decide the dosage. And again, it's not like take more to feel more or heal more. It depends. You could do this much and you get the best healing of your life maybe. You could do this much and nothing may happen. And I've seen both, right? So, yeah, and then you just go back and depends on where you're doing this. In Peru, Brazil, like they have different shamanic cultures. So in Brazil, I know they'll prefer you sit up and do the ceremony. Personally, for me, I found lying down gave me a better effect. So I always lie down. And then, yeah, you just breathe through it. And if you're meant to, then you have these visions. You get into a different state of consciousness, which sometimes people say it as you leave reality. I don't call it that. It's another reality, right? So this is not the only real plane of consciousness we're in. There's other realms that we just don't see because they're a different frequency, right? Just like we don't hear certain sounds that bats can hear or cockroaches can hear. Does that mean that frequency doesn't exist? No. It's the same with vision, right? So spirits exist. They're in a frequency that our eyes don't capture, right? So anyway, so they send you may get visions, and the visions could range from anything. Sometimes I remember seeing these, what I call alien beings, just for the lack of any other term. One of my first ceremonies, there were these red, blue, yellow alien beings that were like literally like thin. They were literally like these camera stands. That's what they look like. But I was on this conveyor belt and they were operating on my mouth. And it's funny that I had that because I used to get this, I still have my wisdom tooth. It would bother me 2-3 times a year. Since that ceremony, it's never bothered me. And it's been 3 years.
How did you know that they're operating on your mouth?
That's what I'm seeing.
Are you seeing it first person or are you seeing third person?
So it's almost like I'm watching.
You're watching yourself. So
I'm watching myself. I'm on this conveyor belt. And it was funny because in those states, I had my mouth open. I was like,
yeah.
And I'm watching myself saying, hey, your mouth is open like this. What are you doing? But it's literally this outside being watching.
Right.
So that was just one of the things I was seeing. But there was so many other beautiful visions, which some of it didn't even make sense. I didn't know what it is. And that's the thing, right? Sometimes
Are
people...
they talking to you?
Some were.
Yeah.
So again, all the ceremonies had different visions. Some of them were very common, certain similar things. But then, there were people in the ceremonies that had seen ancient civilizations. They would say, I saw Egypt, I saw this, I was going through there. Then there were people who would say they saw advanced civilizations where they were flying through this city that looked like the Matrix. So everyone has different visions. And I think part of it is, I'm sure, some of your own programming. I'm sure the mind is involved in some way. Because also one thing I've learned is the messages that you may get from these visions come to you in the form that you can understand.
That you can understand?
That you can understand.
Yes.
So they may want to give you a message, but if you don't understand the language, what's the point, right? So some images you may understand. Sometimes certain messages may come to you in a way that you can understand what it is, right? So, but I've had people say, you know what, why am I doing this? I didn't get anything. They would get really frustrated with it. And I understand, right? You travel from, like those guys had traveled from India to Peru or whatever. You travel a long distance. It's not a short flight. You spend a lot of money. In our culture, we used to going, if I put this money, I have to get this tangible thing back.
Right.
So I understand that conditioning or the programming and that expectation where I didn't get anything. What I like to encourage people is maybe just accept what you got. Because that's what you need for now. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But maybe that's what you need. Like 70% of the visions I had didn't make any sense to me. I don't know what the hell these beings are and what are these patterns that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing these weird creatures and whatever I was seeing, I don't know. But there was 30% made sense. At the end of all of it, I had tremendous healing. I had tremendous opening up of my intuition. I had tremendous opening up of my abilities. It put me on a whole different path. I really connected with my purpose after that. I found my purpose after that. So it's brought about massive change, So, and again, that's what I'm saying. So the visions, the messages you experience.
How long do those visions last for? Are you like
6 or 7 hours, possibly?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does it feel like 6 or 7 hours, or does it feel like it's like
no?
minutes?
And that's the thing. Time and space don't exist, and it's one of those things. Again, technically, you hear time is not real and space is not real. from my experience, and again, everyone's experience is different. So I want to make sure anyone listening to this is not like, so if I go, I'm going to get this healing or I'm going to get this download. This is my experience, and a lot of other people have different experiences. But I remember my first ayahuasca ceremony, I was sitting there. Thankfully, again, I had not researched anything, so I'm not going like, oh, this should happen.
Right.
I literally drank my first cup, sat there, I closed my eyes, started breathing, and then suddenly I feel like, I hear this sound. The shaman starts singing the Icaros, which is extremely powerful and magical. And I'm sitting like this, and I literally feel my hands dissolve. And I'm going, oh, it's kicking in. I'm like, and then my panic, no, I don't want to say panic, but there's something sets in that goes, I don't have hands anymore. Where are my hands? My legs are gone. Like, you literally dissolve. And that's what they call ego death. Your ego dies.
Yeah.
And that's what starts panicking sometimes. Because your ego's like, you lose identity, you lose who you think you are. And that can be a scary thing for your ego and your mind. So you can feel your mind trying to take over, but that's one of the things I've learned from all the ceremonies I've done is you surrender. But that also transfers into life. Learn to surrender. And in the last year, that's one of my practices is I'll just go with the flow. And being an entrepreneur, business revenue is never just like that.
Yeah.
There's, went down. Oh, it's gone great up this month. Oh, this month, what's going on? It's weird. Right? And this year, it's helped me practice that surrender. Oh, it's down? Okay. I'll still keep doing what I need to do. I'm not going to freak out. Because again, freaking out and desperation is a very low level frequency. So going back to what you put out is what you get, you just put this frequency out, how do you attract abundance? You don't. Right? So that's been, so yeah, I would say ayahuasca ceremonies could go, 6-7 hours, 8 hours sometimes. Right? So
And multiple ceremonies back to back? Or like
depends. So
days?
when I was there, it was like 2 nights of ceremony.
Okay.
And then they would give a day off. Integrate and stuff, and then there's again 2 nights of ceremonies, integrate.
How many people are at these ceremonies?
Could be anything, depends on where you do it. I think in my group back then there were probably 10 or 12 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are people like talking, sharing their experiences, what they're getting from it?
After, yeah. So,
after the full thing, or like on
so
the
the next
off
day, because this happens at night,
Okay.
right? And you're done.
Okay.
Or you're super wired. Depends on what your experience was.
Yeah.
But then the next day in the morning, they would have, after breakfast, they would have a sharing circle. How was your experience? What happened? Because then also the shamans would help you interpret some stuff sometimes.
Okay.
Right? So.
Did you need help interpreting anything?
For the healing that I got, I was so happy.
Yeah.
And I was so literally joyous, and I didn't care. I was like, I can't believe what is happening right now. So I didn't ask them anything. Thankfully, most of my ceremonies, I got the biggest messages that I needed. And the other stuff, I was like, that was beautiful. I don't understand it. I don't know what it means. But then, like I said, there have been messages that have been so clear that, all right, I know what to do.
Are the messages, are they all verbal, or is it more of like a feeling?
Sometimes they're visual.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's this voice that tells you.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. So the last time I went to Peru and I was doing the dieta, where you live in isolation, you diet on a specific plant that the shaman selects for you, but you also have ayahuasca ceremonies. So remember my intention, we spoke about this, I don't know if we were recording this, but one of my intentions was to, again, I had asked these plant medicines to teach me what love is. So one of the visions I had was this boa constrictor was around me. It was killing me, well, squeezing me, obviously trying to kill me. Mm-hmm. But he looked at me and said, I love you, but I'm hungry. So I have to kill you. I was like, that's okay. You're hungry, and if that makes you happy, kill me. I love you as well. And the minute I said that, it disappeared. When I integrated that, that was like, that's unconditional love. You still love. You keep loving. And yes, it sounds extreme. Oh, so someone slaps me, I should still love them? Yes, in a grand scheme of things, yes, because they're doing that out of a pain within them. You don't have to change your behavior or feeling. Can you slap them back? Yes, of course. But you can still love them. And that was very profound for me. That was a vision, that was voice. And that's how one of the messages I got was like that. And then other things some other messages were all visual. So this is a little different. So this was when I did DMT. So I did DMT with a shaman here in Toronto, a beautiful shaman. And she took me through 2 DMT ceremonies. And one of the visions I had in the DMT ceremonies, and this is before I went to the second Peru trip. I didn't understand it at the time, but I was shown that I was a king somewhere in Peru or Mexico. I couldn't tell at the time, but it was like jungle, desert, and then they were giving me a crown. They put a crown on me, and it's funny because as I was in the States, I felt something on my forehead at that moment. I thought my shaman touched me. She hadn't. But anyway, I pictured this, whatever. I was like, and I told her that. She's like, yeah, I think you have some kind of lineage there in some previous births or something. You've been there before. And crowning of the king means it's an archetype. So there's 4 divine masculine archetypes. There's the king, the magician, warrior, and the wizard. No, magician, lover. Right? So I didn't know that back then. But now learning all the things I am, I'm like, oh, that meant I'm supposed to connect with the king archetype. Anyway, fast forward 6 months later, I go to Peru. One of the ceremonies, I had these massive downloads. Like I was being shown to the best of my ability and the ability to actually explain it to me, how the universe works. And they were showing me all these, like I was getting messages, like, I don't know, 100 messages per second. It was exhausting. The things I was seeing was insane. After all of that, they said, are you ready to accept your crown? And that reminded me of that DMT ceremony, and I was like, what? And I said yes, and they gave me the crown. Then I realized now I am connected with the king archetype. And now when I'm studying what king archetype is, I'm like, this makes so much sense. So when I was a trainer, nutritionist, whatever, I was the magician. I was using alchemy, nutritional alchemy, to help people transform. Now I am moving into the king archetype, which is using my wisdom from these experiences to help other people, right? And like, how do you deny that? You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I received messages. That was one of the ways.
And you said that these are the masculine archetypes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
King, warrior, magician,
have you read that
lover.
book? Have you?
I'm just finishing that book.
The Way of the Man, or the?
No, it's actually called King, Magician, Lover. King, Wizard, King, Magician, Warrior, Lover. I can send you the.
Do you know the author?
I don't remember. I can send it to you if you like.
I think I have the book. It's
a beautiful book.
I think I'm trying to think of who.
It's one of those books again.
Yeah, I read it like
in schools
6 years ago. 6 years
ago.
Yeah,
it's a very old book.
I'm picturing what.
Yeah. Again, this is the stuff that needs to be taught in schools. Teach men divine masculinity. Teach men divine femininity. We all have masculine and feminine within us. It's an energy thing. It's not a gender thing. This needs to be taught in schools. If this is taught in schools, I guarantee we will not have rape. We will not have domestic abuse. We will probably not have as much divorce. Like, so many social issues will minimize or go away if this is what's taught in schools. Teach people what real love is. Teach people Tantra. Teach people Reiki. Teach people spirituality. Teach people shamanism. Teach people archetypes. Teach the kids. Like, it'll transform the world. And that's one of my goals, is to build community of people that not just explore this, but embody this. And I think that's so important. So important.
How would you compare the two, the DMT to the ayahuasca? Because DMT is basically, it's in everything, right? And that's
yes. It's just, again, we don't access it. and I understand why we can't access this, because then we'll be true gods. And again, through that, one of my last ayahuasca ceremonies when I was in Peru, when I got all these downloads, it was exhausting, man. I was so tired getting those downloads, I literally couldn't even lift my hand up. It was that exhausting. So what one of the messages I was told is, take care of your body, but do what it's capable of, not anymore. Like, push it when you need to, but don't abuse it. Because for your abilities, this is the vessel, and you need to take care of it. But I understand why we can't stay in those states. So if we had access to DMT all the time, geez, it would be insane. But DMT is a way shorter trip. So there's 2 DMTs. There's NN-DMT and there's 5-MeO-DMT. 5-MeO-DMT is considered like the pinnacle, which is one of the things I'm most likely going to experience this year. So I did NN-DMT, which was a shorter experience. So it's, again, you lose sense of time and space. You don't know, but you can tell it was shorter than ayahuasca. Right?
And you smoked it?
Yes.
Yep.
And again, it's visions. It's hard to describe how the visions are different, but it felt different to me in terms of the I guess the colors and the textures and the images and how the things were drawn and stuff like that. It was different, but it's way shorter.
Do you feel like you go somewhere?
What do you mean?
Is there a sense of you leaving your body and your thing, or is it like, do your eyes just roll back and you're seeing blackness?
You're
and
gone,
bright
like
lights
you're
and stuff.
It's so quick to hit you.
Yeah.
And that's where the shaman like kind of helps you sit back and lie down and just relax.
Got ya.
In either of these medicines, you are still aware. There is this level of awareness, and I believe that is your God state. That is your consciousness, as they call it, watching itself.
Right.
In these forms, right? And so you do feel, I don't want to call it an out of body experience, but it's definitely another state of consciousness. Like it does feel like you step back and you're watching.
Right.
But you're watching a movie. Like I didn't see my body lying there.
Okay.
So that's why I can't call it an out of body experience. But it was definitely this me watching a movie and me being aware that I'm lying down here and I'm in this state now. So I was very aware.
Yeah.
Like I was even aware of my shaman being there. I was aware, because also my shaman would speak sometimes in between, because you can go really deep in this stuff. And the right shaman is important because they guide you. They remind you that you're here, you're still in this realm. Because also it's easy to panic, right? We're not used to surrendering.
Sure.
Right? So you can easily start panicking, going, what am I seeing? And I don't want to go deeper. And that was one of my challenges in the first few ceremonies with ayahuasca too. I was like trying to control the ceremony. I was like, as much as I was going deeper and I did not have control, and I was being told over and over, dude, you have no control. Relax.
Is that where you feel like you're still like holding on to the ego and you haven't experienced the ego death?
Yeah. Ego doesn't want to die, although it is dying. Like it's one of the things you can't avoid. But yes, your experience is better when you just surrender. Every time I surrendered, my experience was 10 times better versus when I was trying to control it, and freaking out. It's funny because my first ceremony with ayahuasca, as I was going through, beautiful experience, this, that, but maybe within the first 10 minutes, I'm assuming it was 10 minutes, my mind started going, you're never going home. You're stuck. This is how they keep you here. They took all your property. You're just going to lie here. You're never going to get out of these states. I'm freaking the fuck out. But then again, you relax, and then and this is where the Icaros come in. The Icaros are so powerful. Like they literally move energy that needs to be moved and gets blocked, and they help you release it. So that's where again the Icaros guide you and they bring you back. Because the shamans know. The shamans know what you're going through. It is just so powerful, man. Like the most powerful healing I've ever experienced. And that's why next year I'm going to go study ayahuasca and plant medicine for 8 weeks and actually learn Icaros and work with that. But it's just...
So you would say, back to like the comparison, you would say that DMT is more intense and shorter?
Different.
Yeah.
Shorter, yes.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to call it more intense.
Okay.
Because your ayahuasca ceremony can be the most intense thing too. It just depends how you define intense, right? But it's still, I see the value of DMT versus ayahuasca. Again, this is where how you connect with the medicine matters. I know people who prefer DMT for whatever reason over ayahuasca, over mushrooms. So it's like, it really comes down to what you connect with the most.
Right.
So I love them both. And for me, there would be different reasons why I go, And this is where I want to mention something is the integration post-ceremony is critical. That's where I don't say the true healing, but that's where you're going to take the healing into your life. Because you could have all these ceremonies. And I know people who do ceremonies over ceremonies over ceremonies. And I'm sure they have these are also people who have PTSD, massive trauma. So in no way am I saying their trauma is trivial or anything like that. But I know there are people who don't follow up those ceremonies with proper integration methods.
What do you mean by that? What are those integration methods?
Reflecting, having meditation practice, maybe having some kind of spiritual activity, whether it's qigong, Falun Gong, yoga, something, practicing mindfulness in your nutrition, reading, right? If you do all these ceremonies and you go back to listening to a certain kind of music, watching certain kind of television, being in toxic relationships, not observing your ego, I don't know how much the ceremonies benefit you. You know what I mean? So I think that integration period is critical, which is again why I don't just go, I just don't go, yeah, hey, let's do more ayahuasca ceremonies. No, there's a time period and I go when I'm called for. Again, it sounds weird, but yes, this medicine has always called me and said, yep, you got to go here. You're doing this. And that's, again, every time, all my trips, whatever I've done, has been booked based on my soul guiding me. It's never been a mental thing. You know what? The next experience I want to have is this. And I'm sure I will use my head to do that maybe because I want to go kayak in Greenland. And that's a mental thing I want to experience, right? But my soul has always guided me to the first Peru trip, has guided me to the Everest Base Camp, has guided me to the second Peru trip, is guiding me next year to do a darkness retreat. This year to do a darkness retreat. I'm going to Mexico in October, November to do a shamanic initiation for 3 or 4 weeks in the desert. Again, isolation, desert, whatever. But it's all soul guided. And anyone can do this. For a lot of people that may sound like, what's that even supposed to mean? But again, it's a knowing. And once you start listening and connecting, and it's beautiful once you start listening to that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about what you're doing with your business.
Sure.
You're pretty much known for stress reduced fat loss, right? That's your big thing.
That's our pretty much our baby.
Yeah. Go on. What is that? And give us some information about your business.
So Be Elite is one of my companies with my business partners James and Ken. We started this company because we used to be trainers, nutritionists at commercial gyms. We've done personal training, done nutrition, we manage trainers, and we always found, first with ourselves and with a lot of clients that we observed, is there was always something more than working out and eating clean and doing cardio. There were people who would transform easily, and there were people who would not transform at all. They would be the best trainer, ate well, did the cardio, everything, and wouldn't transform. And that led us, and with our own personal lives at the time or health challenges that we had, we were always looking at what's going on. There's something more than the typical fitness industry. Yes, you do more cardio, you train 5 days a week, cut processed sugar out. We always realized there's more. And that led us to this, learning from different teachers, healing our own selves, led us down to designing or developing stress-reduced fat loss, which is what we need to understand is fat is not bad. Okay. Yes, excess fat is bad, but we need to understand that didn't come there just because you're not training and eating bad. Your body is stressed out. Whether it's mental stress, chemical stress, physical stress, electromagnetic stress, your body responds to that chronic stress by adding body fat. So it's adding cells to protect your organs, right? And that's something people need to understand. right? In the fitness industry, I have fat. Fat is bad. Yes, you don't want it, but you need to understand why is it there. It's a protective mechanism. So first of all, be grateful to your body for being able to do that, right? But what we do through stress-reduced fat loss is we actually assess what are the major stressors on the person's body, right? And we look at the hormone profile. Which are the top 3 hormones most disrupted? We look at their digestive health. We look at, most people don't have proper bowel movements. How do you expect to lose body fat long term, right? Most people don't sleep well. Most people don't absorb food well. So these are all the things we look at, address those issues nutritionally through lifestyle, through supplementation. And the side effect is people drop body fat. So that's our method of stress-reduced fat loss is let's address those issues so that the side effect is you drop body fat versus, if you lose weight, you'll fix all these things. No. You could lose some weight and still be constipated. So really looking at it, if you want to call it from a holistic perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's one of our businesses. It's been there for like over 8 years now. So, and then last year we launched the Transformation Mentorship, which is, we always wanted to teach. We wanted our system, to be able to be duplicated, because any system is only as good as it many times it can be duplicated. Otherwise, it's not really a system. It's works sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. Excuse me. And to impact more people, right? Like if we can teach a trainer who has 50 clients the system and he can impact them, that's beautiful. So now we run these mentorships, which are 12 weeks long, where students come in, they learn our systems, so we teach them the basics about how hormones and fat loss are related. We go really deep into insulin, cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and sleep hormones, because those are top 3 things we find in North America that are most disrupted. The second module, we teach them about gut health, basic things. And then at the end, we teach them how to effectively coach, right? Because you could have this information, but how do you make sure your clients comply? So that's how we teach them. And the cool thing about the mentorship is you have to start practicing during the mentorship. So it's not like I took a certification and great, I will see what I'm going to do with this. To actually get your certificate, you have to produce 2 to 3 transformations in those 3 months, right? So we want people to walk away and go, I know how to use this, versus there's a lot of courses out there that we've even done that we were taught, and then it was up to us to go figure it out, go apply it and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So we put that into a system and said, literally plug this into your system with your clients, create transformations so that at the end of the 3 months, you're confident about how to use these systems.
Love that.
And it's beautiful because the feedback we've been getting is insane. Like clients who were stuck, never got results, they're getting results. People are getting referrals, their business is improving, and that's mission accomplished, right? So. Yeah. You touched on those 3 things. So cortisol, sleep, what else was the other one? Insulin. So blood sugar.
Yes, yeah. What are ways that you guys are helping them with those 3 things?
First, nutritionally, obviously, right? So really looking at, the combination of protein, fats, and carbs, how to put them together in what situation, right? Like there's something called insulin resistance and there's something called insulin sensitivity. So understanding how to find out if a person's resistant or sensitive, and then designing your nutrition around that. Because insulin is the hormone of aging. The more insulin you keep pumping out, the faster you age, right? And aging, not just, you have more gray hair, but your brain doesn't work well. Your energy goes down, your sleep goes down, your libido goes down, your moods get disrupted. So that's one of the first things we really focus on is getting people nutritionally, okay, here, if you do these things, your blood sugar gets better. If you take these supplements like magnesium, your omegas, insulin gets better. Get people to go to bed by 9:30, 10. Sleep is one of the most powerful things you can use to heal. So even just coaching people on that, on the lifestyle side, right? Like, so I wouldn't say no point, but really, if you're spending $300 on supplements and you don't sleep well,
what's the point?
Yeah, like how much are you maximizing out of that? So we try and look at that whole picture and go, great, this is how you get people to heal. And when they heal, they drop body fat. Right?
Oh, geez, I just had a question. I just lost my thing there. What's your take on, like, do you guys not push? Do you guys have a certain diet that you guys recommend, or do you treat it like let's assess this person, let's see their hormone levels, and let's see what diet is actually better for them, whether it be like a low carb or vegetarian or vegan, or should they be doing fasting? Because I think like right now we're just bombarded with so many different things.
Much.
Paleo's popular, vegan's popular, fasting's popular. Like, so I think everyone tries different things.
Absolutely.
So what's your take on that?
So we don't have one method where we assess the person. So how's your digestion, right? Genetically, how do you like eating? Do you like darker meats or lighter meats? Do you like more fat foods or less fatter foods? So we look at all these different things. How's your sleep, right? So if someone's not sleeping well, I would give them carbs at night because that will help them make serotonin. They'll get into deeper states of sleep. Versus if someone sleeps well but doesn't handle carbs well, okay, let me just keep your carbs around your training time and not maybe at night. So really looking at all these factors. But yes, there are basic principles we follow that apply to any human being. So we don't even look at it as like, yeah, you should be vegetarian. Because personally, I don't agree with someone being vegetarian. We're meant to be omnivores. We are omnivores, are meant to be. We are. There's a reason why we have brains like this, digestive systems like this, and even look at your teeth. There's a reason why you have grinders and you have what are they called? Scissors or canines or whatever?
Yeah.
This chews into meat.
Yeah.
This grinds vegetables and grains. So let's not has to be only this way. Eat the right amount of animal protein, quality animal protein, combined with the right quality of greens and veggies and vegan sources, right? And be mindful of what's the balance that you need, right? And yeah, if you're insulin resistant, you need to manage your carbs and increase your fats. If you're insulin sensitive, you may be able to have more carbs. But again, anyone needs to manage carbs, proteins, fats, and fiber. So we always apply certain principles that as a human being, this is encoded in your genome. So let's not deny that, right? So, because in my practice, and my business partners will agree with this, we've seen as many vegans and vegetarians have the same or more issues as the meat eaters. So it's just that the vegans, vegetarians have gone on this end of the spectrum, and there are meat eaters who have gone on that extreme of eating processed meat, not in a variety of greens. So when we coach them, we're trying to coach them on let's come to the center, versus you're deficient in that, you're deficient in that. So let's plug those deficiencies first, get your system working well, then we can look at all the other stuff, right? So that's how we approach it. We don't have like some kind of like, we're always keto, or yes, everyone should fast, because I've seen women whose periods went bad, moods went bad, sleep got disrupted when they started doing intermittent fasting, right? So it's we always look at what does this person need, and this is also why our coaching is done on a weekly basis. We don't just go, here's your plan, see you in a month.
Yeah.
What if 3 days in the person's constipated? So there's check-ins every week so that they give us feedback. We change things based on the feedback.
What's your diet like?
Pretty simple. Animal protein every meal. Carbs mostly around training. I keep them. So the way I do it is the days I train, I have more carbs. Days I don't train, or rather don't train with weights, I eat a little less protein, a little less carbs. Almost no carbs on those days. Fats are higher. So again, nutrition can be so simple. Like you train, eat more. You don't train, eat less.
Yeah.
However, this is where it gets specific. What does more and less mean? More of what, less of what?
Sure.
And just balancing it based on the person.
Yeah. And have you done any of the intermittent fasting or prolonged periods of fasting? Have
No,
you ever done anything?
I've done intermittent fasting a little bit. Again, I not every day. I'll do it like, again, if I've those days where I'm not training at all. So if I'm not even running, if I'm not even doing yoga, nothing at all, I may do a little bit of an intermittent fast. Right? But other than that, no, I think the only times I've really fasted would be for preparation for ceremonies. So usually you fast or you go vegan for a while, stuff like that. Now, when I was doing the dieta for 14 days, I was vegan, no animal protein for over 14 days.
Do they eat more of a vegan diet there? That was in Peru, right?
Yeah. So no, they eat fish. They eat
Yeah.
like all the other stuff. But for ceremony, during ceremony, after ceremony, there's certain guidances. Because also there are certain foods that can conflict with the plant medicines.
Okay.
Right. So not necessarily that you could get a bad reaction. Sometimes you could.
Yeah.
But also sometimes you may not have a deep experience because these foods came in.
Right.
Right. So.
Right. I've dabbled in like fasting, intermittent fasting for the last, well, I don't know. It's been popular for a while, but I've been doing. I honestly, it's funny. Like I got into intermittent fasting before it became like mainstream. I forget the guy. I was following this guy's blog, and he was basically he was just ripped. I forget his name, but he was like on any of those bodybuilding forums and stuff. And I got into that. That was like when I just got into university. That was like 10 years ago, and so I got into it then, and then I got off of it, but now I'm back into it. Now I'm actually like, it's more or less like I'm doing 24-hour fasts, like almost like every day. Basically on the weekend, like with the kids, I'll have like late lunch, 2 o'clock kind of thing. We're always doing something, like I'll take them out for lunch or something more of like an activity, right? So I'm not going to be restrained. I never feel like I'm like restrained, but I think I feel the best on it for me personally.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I tell like the guys on my team, they're like, I don't push anything like to people. I just like, you figure it out.
Yeah.
Feel like,
you just share your experience.
Yeah. I feel like with the nutrition, I mean, this is years ago when I stopped, talking too much about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you figure it out because everyone, it's like almost like, it's that conversation where you might as well just talk about what's your religion. People get so offensive and they got their own opinion.
Or
it's
righteous.
just like it's just crazy, right? Where it's just like I don't want to be around that energy. And it's like just do, if you feel good, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. If not, then search for something else, get help, but like try something, right? Like
100%.
You gotta test some stuff and monitor it.
Yeah.
Right, but for me, I just think like right now it's been working, and
Beautiful.
I like it. I like just the simplicity of it. Actually,
sure.
I'm more productive, clearer mind.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have like cravings. I don't crave or anything like that. Yeah. I've done like 3-day fasts.
Yeah.
The hard part for me is like doing those 3-day fasts is actually just like your adrenaline kicks in on day 2. Like the first night, and sometimes when you're just used to like having the carbs, how you said like helps you sleep, and you can feel it. Like sometimes you're just like, I need to sedate myself. I need like some carbs. I need some rice or some pasta or something kind of like to make you feel heavy, because then you're just kind of like you're so light, and you're just like, this is weird because like culture says like you got to go to bed at this time, but when your primal instincts kick in, it's basically saying like go hunt for some food. Right. So you're just like wired, but the energy is so pure. It's just like no Monster energy drink or coffee can even like add up to this type of energy.
That's amazing.
And it's you're like super productive. You're super alert. Yeah. Like I remember on like day 1, day 2, just even driving, and you're just like, holy shit, like I've got extra like senses, right? The focus is insane. Yeah. So I started doing that like in my, just in my business. Like I was like, okay, well if I, on Mondays, if I do that 24-hour fast or I stretch into a 48-hour fast, I'm more productive.
Right.
So I was trying to stack like, high value tasks on those days, or to say like, let me work, it's because sometimes you're like, okay, well I've been fasting now for, over 24 hours, but I don't need to go to bed at 11. You're like, you've got all this just pure clean, it's like clean energy. It's weird. Oh yeah. It's weird. So it's just like, well, let me work on some strategies, or let me work on business development, or let me do whatever it is.
Sure.
That's something.
The creative work.
Exactly.
Work on the business.
So, right. So then, but it's, it's kind of like the norm of, I should be going to bed at this time. But when you've got all that energy, like, why not? Like, why not just continue? Yeah. So then I was just like, oh, well, I can be more productive and like, just crush a bunch of work on that first day, which then, if I'm going to put in, 60-hour work week or whatever it is, right? So that was more than I can get most of those high priority tasks done on that first day on that Monday. Yeah. So I get like, for me, a lot of it is like the mind, like clear mind, no cravings. I don't feel like I'm more or less like a prisoner or a slave to food. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like I'm eating like this, or I'm eating from a reward. Yeah. Or, I'm having a bad day, let me eat to kind of handle my mood kind of thing, to give me a pick me up or something like that.
Absolutely.
I'm not eating on that. But just and also just simplistic, where it's like, wake up, I don't have to worry about breakfast. I don't have to worry about packing a lunch kind of thing. It's just like when I get home, then it's just basically I eat a massive meal in basically less than an hour.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, cool, digestion's great.
Sure.
Sleep has been good.
Sure.
And it's just like more or less like just the fact that it's one less thing. It's kind of like, you know, decision fatigue, or, you know, how
exactly.
some people, they worry so much about what they're going to wear, right? Like even that's where I've simplified my life that way. I'm like, okay, I'm only going to wear like, you know, black basically, and it goes with everything. And I don't have to sit there going through like, you know, a closet going, well, that shirt doesn't go with that pants. And then it has to coordinate with those shoes.
Absolutely.
So it's just more from like a simplistic point. But that's, I'm kind of back into it where I'm like, that's kind of cool. And
that's awesome.
You know, a lot of people, they'll ask questions, aren't you going to eat something? Or do you want this? And I'm like, no, I'm cool. Like, I don't want to break my fast. And they're like, what do you mean? Right. And then it's like, we got to go into this. Right. But then they're curious. Right.
Of course.
And I'm like, oh, just try it. Like, you know, you could try it. You could try just skipping breakfast and see how you feel. Like, I mean, if you get lightheaded and you feel like you can't drive or function at work, maybe it's not for you.
Exactly.
Or maybe you're just going, you're so addicted to some of these, you know, toxins that you're putting in your body.
Absolutely.
Right. That maybe you just need to, you know, to go through a little bit of a detox period.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
To go through that. But I was just curious because of you going through all those ceremonies, and I know like fasting's big in some places, right? Where it's just like, I don't know, just kind of.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why even before ceremonies, like depending on the ceremony, they tell you, because like, for example, the ayahuasca ceremony would not start till 7 p.m., but the last meal is at 1. So, you know, and so it's a long period of time, you know, so even when you do DMT or whatever, you know, you're fasting for quite a bit. Recently I did Cambo.
What's that?
Which is frog poison.
Frog poison?
Poison, yeah.
Okay.
So there's, so it's beautiful. I love nature's medicines. Like, it's just beyond incredible. But basically they're these frogs, I forget what they call, again, they're in the Amazon. And they secrete this poison. So they collect that poison. And basically the way it's administered is they burn like a top layer of your skin. You literally feel like it's a pinprick. Okay, so it's not like, but the top little skin goes away, and then they administer the poison on it. And basically it's one of the most powerful immune system boosters on the planet. And if you look into it, like it's cured diseases that Western medicine medications have not been able to. But basically, like again, like a lot of these medicines, they're not comfortable. Which is, again, I think part of the beauty of the medicines is they put you through this discomfort that teaches you that it's temporary, you know, and it will pass. And you just sit and breathe, and it connects you to your breath, right? So, but then there's some purging happening, you know. So you could throw up, you could go to the bathroom, but it cleans your system. Like,
do you feel amazing. That instantly, or is it something that you feel like over the week? Or
no, it during the ceremony. That's
okay.
So it doesn't last. Again, the medicine keeps working, so you may have certain changes, but the nausea, or the throwing up, or the whatever is for the duration of the ceremony. And the ceremony could be like 15 to 30 minutes. Extremely powerful.
They're not making this stuff into like an extract. Like, you can't take it like
no. You want to do it with a proper practitioner. You can, but with any such medicine, I am big on the set and the setting. You know, and having the right person to guide me through it. You know, so like, I definitely want to do it with someone who's trained. Especially, this is frog poison. This is not a joke. Not that you're gonna die, but you know, if you don't know the proper hydration levels and stuff to keep, it could be dangerous, right? Because you're throwing up stuff and all that, and it could cause certain things, right? So, but pretty much the poison goes through your system, scans what needs to be eliminated, and then the purging begins, and it's beautiful medicine. Beautiful medicine.
How long does the purging process take?
Like I said, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you're exhausted, and you may do another ceremony instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had done 2 ceremonies, and then she had recommended the third one. So another day I did a third one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very powerful.
That's cool. How many, so like on your Instagram and on your social media, you do, you know, Facebook Lives, and you post these transformations. How many of these transformations are you are you posting like a week or a
Oh,
month?
but-
Like you got so many, and you know,
At least two
to
a
the
week.
to the people listening, I mean, we'll definitely check out in the show notes below his information. You got to check it out because these transformations are wild, right? Like,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, you just swipe to see the before and after, and you're just
Yeah.
like, holy crap, they're
Yeah.
they're radical,
Yeah.
right?
And a
So-
lot of them don't even train.
yeah,
Like it's nutritional healing. It's allow your system to heal, and your body has this innate wisdom. It knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying people shouldn't train, but a lot of the before and afters are people who don't work out, just allowing the system to heal, and that's the result.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, at some point they have to train and work out and whatever, but it's amazing what nutrition can do for you. You know, so.
Do you see any similarities for? I mean, a lot of business owners watch the show, listen to the show. Like, do you see something that they have in common that you can say, like, oh, they're deficient usually in this, or they need to work on this? What are some of those things that you can maybe share with us?
I would say number one, most people are under eating proteins, whether it's from fear of animal protein being bad for you or hurting your kidneys, or part of it is also just we are drawn to carbs more than chicken or turkey or steak or bison or whatever, right? Like usually when we're hungry, the first thing your body, because it wants energy, we're drawn to carbs, and carbs tend to be more delicious or whatever, right? So I think that I find is one of the biggest issues is people don't eat enough protein. Secondly, I would say not enough fats, right? Again, I think it's this old, programming of fat is bad, eat low fat and all
Yeah.
that stuff. I think it's still sadly there on people's minds. And then certain nutrients, I would say, again, fish oil, good quality fish oil, omegas, magnesium, massive. I've never seen in the last 10 years someone who has enough magnesium in their system.
Yeah, and that's because like the
Yeah.
deficiencies in our soil, right?
Yeah, in the soil, magnesium gets ripped from your system really fast because it's involved in almost every single chemical process. So, and most of us are in state of fight or flight anyway. Whether it's just driving, commuting every day, or having 20 things that need to get done, or putting out fires or whatever it is, right? Like we tend to be in that state of fight or flight usually. So magnesium and B vitamins get depleted the most. So I would say, those proteins, fats, omegas, and magnesium, massive deficiencies.
What are some ways that some people can kind of see like some home checks, something that they can check at home or on their body to see if they have some sort of deficiencies or if they can see some of the imbalances? What are some of those like natural ways of like looking at like their eye color or their skin dryness or their oiliness? Like what are some of those? I mean, you
That's a
probably
good
know
question.
a lot.
I find it's hard to say if your skin is dry, this is happening, because your skin could be dry because maybe you're just not hydrated. But your skin also could be dry if you have yeast and fungus overgrowing. Sometimes skin being dry could be an issue, could be a symptom of your thyroid not being great. Like let's say if you have your hairs thinning and falling a lot more, that could be a thyroid issue. That could be a stress issue. That could be you're not detoxing issue. That could be as simple as you just need more omegas. So I would say people need to again connect with their body. And this is something I just posted the other day is maybe for the next 14 days or even 7 days, if 14 sounds overwhelming, write down every single thing you ate. Like detail. Write it down, keep a food journal, and also write down what your energy was like that day. If you had any energy crashes, what time, how your sleep was that night, how your bowel movements were, and how your moods were. Literally track this for 7 to 14 days and look at it. First, become aware, right? We're so disconnected. We don't realize, like when clients show up for consultations, they look at the questionnaires, they're like, wow, I never thought about any of these things. But that's the first step. So I would say that's the first thing anyone can do is just keep this log for 14 days ideally, right? Because in 14 days, you're going to go through so many different situations. It will show you a good picture of, oh, I see I don't eat enough. Or, you know what? Every time I ate only 3 meals, I didn't sleep well that night. Or, oh yeah, look at that. I had lots of carbs every night and I don't know, my bowels were not good that night or that day. So you're going to start seeing patterns. But I think the first step would be, become aware, connect with your body first, and then decide what needs to happen. What are the issues? If there's things that you see there and you want to fix, let's get into that. Or if you think that I don't know what to do from here, contact someone who is qualified to do that. But first become aware. Really understand what's going on with your system.
Yeah, and how ironic. I mean, at the start, you were talking the same sort of thing, like this whole self-awareness and, just being aware of what our relationships are talking, telling us, and how there's, again, repeating patterns that it's going to keep on delivering you the message, where it's like, that's the universe, talking to you. And then here it is, your body's trying to tell you some of these things.
And the body's symptoms change, I find. But the root cause could be the same. So I've had people, let's say they had eczema when they were 12. They didn't get eczema for years. Now they're 50 something, but they had to have a hysterectomy. Interestingly, a lot of times that's related to that eczema or the root of the eczema. You had yeast and fungus overgrowing since maybe you were a kid. First, it showed up as eczema. Years later, it showed up as issues because of which I don't agree with it, but they said you had to remove your organs, right? A lot of times it's like kids, right? Like, so you have kids, so you'll understand this, and we all have been kids, so we all understand it. But, let's say we call our mom. First, we call mom. Mom's not listening. Then we go pull on her dress. Doesn't listen. Then we go push mom a little bit. Mom still doesn't listen. Then we go break something. The body's exactly like that. It escalates symptoms. Every time it's talking to you in all these different forms. It could be as simple as constipation to having acne. Your body is talking. Stop looking at these things as, I have a problem. Go a little deeper and go, what is my body telling me?
Right.
Where am I stressed that I can't even poo properly? Where am I stressed? Why am I not detoxing well? What am I putting in my system that's showing up as acne now? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, huge. Great point with that.
Yeah.
What's your next step? What's the future hold for you? You've got this book, so tell us about the book that you're writing.
I haven't still started writing.
Okay,
it's funny because my brother Jason King, I was talking to him a couple of months ago, and I was saying, I was thinking about how, again, getting caught up in the how.
Yeah.
How I'm going to publish this book and this and that, and he asked me, "Did you start writing it?" I was like, "No, I've got to start writing." He's like, "So you don't have a publishing problem, you have a writing problem."
Yeah.
So I have to set block time aside. I'm just arranging a couple of things with both my businesses right now, where I'm actually starting to block time off for, okay, Fridays is my day to do, podcasts or have business meetings and coach my staff and stuff like that. And just like that. So once I have a little more grip on that, I'm going to start blocking time off to start doing my writing. So, but the name of the book is Heart of God, A Hero's Journey to True Love, or Love. I've got to work on that part. But that's the book, and it's about love, capital L, love.
Is it talking about your experiences?
Everything.
And through your experiences. Okay.
And then I guess the I don't want to call them laws, but what I have learned from that.
Yeah.
And I think some of those have been downloaded through these ceremonies or through just being by myself, and some of them have been like aha moments or smack in the face. This is why.
Yeah.
So.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely going to read it when it comes out. No pressure to get it out there, right? But
no, I have to write it this year and get it done this year. That's my goal.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, man.
And like always, it's amazing chatting with you. I'll definitely have you back on,
brother.
because I feel like we just, scratched the surface and there's so much to talk about.
Absolutely.
But, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching my conversation with Bharat. Check him out. His information is posted in the show notes below. If you or someone you know is a leading industry professional with a great story, I want to talk to you. Shoot me an email at show@sankermedia.com. Go ahead, like, comment, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more to come.